Okay, so this is nice. I see some familiar faces, people working either on digital agriculture or extension. So I would like to welcome you all to this fifth mentoring webinar, which is done in the framework of experience capitalization online course. And this is the mentoring session that is dedicated to document and share to generate change. This should be the last group webinar that we are having. We have had some individual mentoring session. And we will continue doing so because at the end, what we would like you to do is to be able to document the experience that you're capitalizing on, and so that we can share it with others. So today is the end of the process. And I will invite now Jorge, who is going to do a little recap. So people who are just joining for the first time will be able to follow it. And then we have invited a few people to share with us the experience that they have been capitalizing on, and we will do some exercise. So the way the session is structured is first the recap from Jorge, then we will hear someone telling the story of the experience he or she has been capitalizing upon. Then we, after having heard several of them, we will have some feedback so that it helps you to do the same process, to be able to document, to share, and to see how you can share it. And therefore, and after that, we will have our conclusion and the next steps. So now I give the floor to Jorge, and I'm very pleased to listen to him and to the recap. The floor is yours, Jorge.
Thank you, Sophie. Thanks, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, this is going to be a very short summary of what we've been doing and of the process in itself. So of course it will not be complete, but I just wanted to do it as a way of highlighting what the most important parts are, and starting of course of the reasons why we are interested in an experience capitalization process and why we encourage people to do it, or why you should think that this is worth doing. Of course, it's very difficult to summarize everything that we've been doing in a very few minutes, but well, let us try to do it. And of course, we have always the opportunity to go back with a few questions from you all. I wanted to start picking on one word which Sophie mentioned, and that is a process. We are talking about a process. So we are not talking about something that you do in one moment, something that comes out immediately, but we are talking of a process which has to, well, follow a set of steps, which means sometimes going back or going forward or repeating a few steps, but which involves different ideas and which of course involves different people. Those of you who have been following this will remember that we start by preparing. We start by thinking, what are we doing? Why are we doing? And preparing the whole set of activities that it's going to follow. And then, of course, the next comes the actual implementation on doing the experience capitalization process, which means collecting information, analyzing it in detail, putting it all together, and then sharing it with others who may or may not have been part of the experience that we are looking at, or may not have been part of the process in itself. And then we do all of this, not just so that we produce a very nice document. Of course, that is part of the objectives that we have, is to have a nice document, but that is not the end. The idea is that this document is used, and that this document helps to change practices, to do better, to have better results from the activities that we do in the field. So the important thing is to think of this as a process, which of course means getting different people involved, facilitating, working together, and as I said, going back, going forward. But the idea of starting a set of activities, of course, has to start with selecting or clearly having an idea of why are we doing this? What do we expect out of this? And this is something that we've been discussing quite a lot, but which we thought it is worth repeating here, because we have to be, I think, very conscious and very aware of what the purpose is of dedicating all this time and energy and effort. When we think of an experience capitalization process, as I said, the purpose, many people think that it is just to have a very nice document that we can present or that we can share with others. But I think that we have to remember that it is more than that. What we want is to learn, which means draw lessons which are useful on the basis of the experience that we have, on the basis of the work that we are doing in the field. We try to avoid losing all this knowledge, which I'm sure you have been noticing, that you do all these things and you accumulate all these new ideas, and many times the project finishes and we start a new a set of activities and we simply forget all that we did and all that we learned. So the purpose of this is to prevent that. And by preventing this, to be able to use it so that we can become more efficient, we can be more effective, we can, in a few words, we can do better. Better in terms of more results, more beneficiaries, I don't know, more impact. You know, and that is what we mean actually by generating change. Many times we are involved in projects which we could say are very successful, but perhaps, yeah, it's if we think of the number of potential beneficiaries, we realize that the beneficiaries that we are actually benefiting, the people we are working with, are not that many. So we have to try to do more. We have to try to upscale. We have to have much more impact. The whole purpose of this process is to do that, to be able to generate change at a larger scale. And then, of course, when we think in terms of efficiency, we can say that we need to, or we can benefit by working together, by pooling resources, by collaborating with our colleagues or also with others. And these others means, of course, the local authorities, the governments, the people who are going to decide and to shape the environment, the conditions, the laws, the regulations that influence the work that we do and which are going to help, in theory, help us get much better results. Now, so as I repeat myself, it is a document, but it is not a document so that we just store it in some library or we put it on our computers. It is a document which is, in theory, going to help us achieve these results. Now, so I want this to be very clearly from the beginning of every post, is that this is what we are aiming at. But in order to reach that, we have to think of the key, let's say, element of the process. We talk about experience capitalization, which means that we are looking at one experience in particular. All of you and all of us, we are involved in many different activities, and we all do different things in the field, and we all work with a lot of people. And many times we have the feeling that we have to, let's say, make a document covering everything that we do. But it becomes a bit difficult to draw lessons out of a story that covers and says everything of that we've been doing or that we intend to do. The approach that we follow with experience capitalization is to focus on a particular experience. That part of our work, which it's going to help us come up with a few lessons, or that part of our work which is especially interesting for ourselves or for others. And then one of the tricks, or one of the tips that we've also received ourselves is to focus on that part of our work which is special, which is unique, which is not what everybody else is doing, because that is what it's going to help us draw lessons, and that is what we may be more interested in and other people are also more interested in. So when we start the process, and through the whole process, we have to remember that we are not writing about everything that we are doing. No, we are focusing on an experience as a set of activities, as a set part of the things that we do, which are unique, which are different. And that's what copying from marketing people, we use this term, this USP idea, which basically summarizes the idea that that something that we want to show, something that we want to share, has to be new, has to be different, has to be especially interesting for other people, and perhaps contradictory, or let's say different than what other people are saying. Now, sometimes we say that you have to think of this as something that you are trying to sell. If you're trying to convince your colleagues to buy something from you, you have to offer something that they don't have, something that they are going to be especially interested in. So you have to offer something new, because if you are offering something that they already have, then they're not going to be interested in. So it is a bit the same here. We need to select that part of our work which is different, which is especially interesting, and then focus on it, and then try to come the lessons, which, because they are different, because they are new, then they are going to be much more interesting for our colleagues, for other people. Now, so this is the starting point. So whatever we are going to be doing with this process starts from here, from this part of our work, which is especially interesting. But at the same time, we have to think of who are these people who are going to be interested in what we do, in what we work. Of course, perhaps the starting point, we could think of ourselves. We are doing this process to benefit ourselves, because we're going to draw lessons which we want to know, because we didn't know them before. So we are the main, let's say, beneficiaries. But at the same time, we have to think that we are not doing this alone, and we are also doing it to share it with other people. So who is going to work with us, and who is these other people who are going to be reading, or who are going to be benefiting from our work? That's something that we have to be, I think, very clear also from the beginning. All of you have been involved in communication initiatives, and you know that it's very different to write a document which is going to be read by farmers, or a document which is going to be read by policymakers. You have to use different words, you have to use different styles, you have to prepare different documents. In this case, it is the same. We are starting a process, but we have to know very well who's going to be involved, because that is going to shape the whole set of activities that we do. Yes? And then, of course, we have to remember what we want. So why are we doing it? As I said at the beginning, we are doing this to share information, as we have here in dark blue. But that's not the only thing. We want to be more efficient. We want to convince other people. We want to reach out and make it easier for, let's say, policymakers to come up with new policies and new regulations, which are going to help us or other people be much more efficient. And of course, that means generating change, having better results on the basis of the work that we are doing. So let's say these are the starting points, which shape the whole process, which shape the activities that we have been discussing in the previous meetings. Everything we do as part of the process, for example, if we need to collect information and we go to the field and we organize a series of interviews, for example, all of that has to be shaped by these ideas, because we have to know what type of information we are collecting. We have to know who are we going to interview, and then we have to know how are we going to put that information together so that we share it with these people, so that it leads to this type of results. So I wanted to emphasize those, let's say, the starting points which shape the process that we are involved in. But at the same time, Once, let's say, the process is advanced and finished, we have to remember that it is, and I repeat it again, it is not just to produce a document which is going to be standing there in some bookshelf, but it is some document which is going to help change, which is going to help people do things differently. And we summarize this with the word adoption. Whatever lessons or whatever recommendations we give as part of our experience capitalization process, the idea is that these are adopted, these are taken further, these are used by my colleagues, by people working in my organization, or by people working in other organizations, so that they put them into practice, so that they are, as I said, change. But all of you, especially those working in extension, all of you have been discussing adoption, I'm sure, for a very long time. And you know that there are some ideas which are easily adopted, and there are some ideas which, no matter what you say, are simply not taken. So we have to remember that, and we have to make sure that the ideas that we are presenting will be adopted. So we can think a little bit of theory, and we can say, okay, let's say if I recommend you something to do something, you will compare it and you will see the relative advantage of what I'm saying versus the ideas that you had already in advance. So we can think, as I said, in terms of theory, but we need to remember that we have to put that theory into practice. So whatever we present, whatever the lessons we come up as a result of the description, of the analysis of the whole experience capitalization process, we have to remember that these are going to be read and that they have to follow the theory so that they are able to be put into practice, and so that those who are supposed to benefit from the process are indeed going to benefit. Otherwise, we don't reach what we want to reach. And then, of course, linked to adoption, we think of the other word, which I'm sure you have come across, which is this idea of replicability, so that it is not just taken up by one group or one set of colleagues, but on the contrary, that this is copied, but this is, well, adopted massively, no, by different people. And then again, we have to think of the theory, and you must, of course, immediately think, oh yeah, if I expect people to copy what I'm doing, then they need resources, because I also need resources. So we need more funds, and we need the support of people to, yes. What I'm trying to say is that there is, let's say, some theoretical conditions for this replicability to take place. So those conditions. We have to make sure that, well, we are paying attention to them. Sometimes we are not able to influence them, and you may say sometimes you are not able to find resources, but you have to be aware that these resources are necessary. So you have to make sure that at least you mention them, and you make people aware that it is necessary to go and to look for them. Yes. So what I'm mentioning here is that, to go back, we're talking about a process. We require different steps to follow. We have been discussing all these different steps throughout the different meetings that we have had. But now that we're coming close, it's important to remember that we have some initial conditions, some key questions that we need to address at the beginning. And we have to have some key questions at the very end, like this adoption and replicability. And then when we have those ideas and we pay attention to this, we have to, well, start putting it all together and present it and share it with ourselves, with our colleagues, and with different people. Putting it together in a way in which we can share it. Last time we spoke a little bit about documenting, which basically means, well, as I said, putting it together, putting the information together in a certain format that we can share. And we talked about products and channels. And we discussed, if you remember, that sometimes we talk about, well, audio documents, or we talk about videos, or we talk about writing blogs, or we talk about writing emails. we can talk about, or we can share information in many different ways. Most of the times, we think of a document, a short article, a blog piece. And we do this because writing has a lot of advantages over other things. We can store it, we can share it easily, we can send it by email, we can also read it out loud and present it. So there are different reasons why we do this, and also because perhaps it is the one that we are most used to. But we can also do audios, and we can also do videos, and we can also do face-to-face presentations. Actually, it doesn't really matter. What matters, again, is that we make sure that we follow, that we know why are we doing this, who are we doing it for, what are we describing, what are we sharing, and how are we going to do it, so that the document in itself truly responds or reflects the experience that we are talking about, and so that it really becomes very interesting for these people that we are trying to be to benefit or to target, and so that it really leads to the results that we mentioned at the beginning. In order to do this, we've been talking about a template. And a template is, as the name says, it is just a set of items or a set of questions that help you organize the information that you collect through the process, and which help you put it in a certain way, let's say a certain order that makes sense and which becomes easier to read. Every time you write something, you follow a template. If you're going to send an email, if I ask you, send me an email, you're going to follow a template, but of course it is just mentally. But you start with the heading, and you then say, "Dear Jorge," and then you start with an introduction, and then you finish with the most important conclusions, and then you say, "Hope to see you again," and then you sign. So you follow a template. It's just that we do it automatically and we don't really think about it, but you are following a template. In this case, it is the same. We have a template, but then to make it easier for ourselves, we don't just do it mentally, but we outline what are the steps or what are the ingredients, now as a sort of skeleton. So here we've been recommending to use one of these. Of course, it is not the only one. And then at the same time, we've been asking to follow or working with all of you in some sort of template, which, if you remember, it is just a set of questions. So we have these basic templates, and then we are going to go back with all of you to look at them later today. But if you remember, or if you see the links that we have here, the template is just basically a set of questions, a set of subheadings, and then that remind us that these are the things that we have to emphasize. These are the things that we need to make sure that are there. Yeah, as a sort of, how do you say, key elements that we have to ensure that they are there and that we have to complete. So we've been following these templates, these ones. As I said, they are not the only ones, but they help us, yeah, to present the information we have. I think this is, and then of course, this is the additional information that you can go back to, and you can see what we've been doing and how we have been doing it. But what we would like to do, and I'm finishing with this, is to go back to these templates and work together with you so that we check that we have all the initial questions, all the final questions, and everything in between complete. So that in that sense, we are not just describing and analyzing the particular experience that you have chosen, but also coming up with the lessons that are really going to help us, well, generate change, which is what we want. Yes. Back to you, Sophie.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Thank you for this little recap. And I hope that you all appreciated the unique selling point. Maybe, Jorge, can you go back to that slide, because this would be useful
Yes.
for the next exercise. So with several of you, We have been capitalizing. Some of you have been following all the webinars as from the beginning. I know that among the people who are here today, many of you have done the whole course. You have your super badge. And therefore, without taking you by surprise, there are a few people who have prepared a case and who are ready to share it with us. Now, the way we would like you to share the case with us is not by reading what you have written while you were replying to the questions, but let's think that you are in an elevator and you have a maximum of 5 minutes, just a maximum of 5 minutes. And this is a a very tall building to have 5 minutes in an elevator. You have only 5 minutes to explain what you have been capitalized upon and to explain to the person who is with you in the elevator that this is very important and that it is worth that this person adapted, adopted, or scale it up. So this is what I'm going to ask you. It's really in a very short time, thinking about all the questions that you have been filling in, is that you tell us the story.
I'm happy to start. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kaisulina. So Kaisulina, the floor is yours. We are all in the elevator with you and we are really excited to hear about your story. Please go.
Okay, thank you very much. So the starting point is that we were all new in our team and we realized that we didn't have the knowledge of what had happened in our case, DRR activities and projects in Reu before we joined the team. And that being the case, we wanted to have some kind of a storage or some kind of a keep all the information in one place. And we started by making a kind of a long document, putting everything together. And then we realized that, okay, actually it should be more something that can be kind of, we can quickly search for and categorize our activities and projects with specific kind of categories that are needed for reporting or when we are attending a specific meeting or something like that. And we wanted to create kind of a storage. It's basically an Excel table with certain categories and putting all the information in on ongoing and past to some years back, past DRR related activities in Reu in different countries and with certain categories. And the idea, I mean, this is only for our team at the moment, but hopefully this will be used. I mean, whenever there is a new team member coming, he or she can quickly see that, okay, what is going on, can find the information quickly and easy. And also because we are, of course, cooperating with other teams, and we are somehow also keeping track on climate change activities or projects. Maybe this could be also helpful for another team. And we haven't really done this kind of we haven't shared it yet, but it just came to my mind that it could be shared as a case study or as a template to other teams if they want to use it. I mean, if they are interested on the DRR activities, or if they want to use it for their team, it could be done. So very quickly, this was my story. And actually, Valentin has been supporting. We have been working together. So if Valentin wants to add something, please feel free.
Very nice. Valentin, do you want to add anything?
Well, Katalina covered it really well, but the main point is to find the information as soon as we can, because this was the hardest part, because we have the FAO system and we can have all the information. However, it took so long, but using this Excel table, we are just able to find projects or areas in a quick way. So that's
very good, very good. I'm very pleased to hear that, because this is a good illustration how you can organize the information better so that you can capitalize, and that everybody knows where to find what. Thank you. That's very, very good and very nice to hear. Now, if Sophia Burtak is available and ready, I would invite her. I have put in the chat the few names and a potential order. This is absolutely not the way it has to be. Just let me know in the chat if this is okay for you to present this way, or if you want to change. So if Sophia is ready, then I welcome her. Thank you, Sophia. You have 5 minutes in the elevator.
Yes, thank you. Hello in this elevator, everybody. And my case, which I chosen, was my pain, actually. It was really paining, because we are working as extensionists mostly in the consultancy or training mode. And we have a lot of feedbacks of the people around, producers, donors, organizations, that your trainings are very much theoretical, maybe not very practical, and how the people should apply the knowledge which you are providing. So this pain and this is kind of inner insecurity took my energy to develop the methodology. How can I assess the training results? And again, not assess only knowledge, because I know that people can gain some knowledge rapidly, like they didn't know what is the break-even point, and straight after the training, they knew the formula, or they can know the approach. That's why I decided to make more comprehensive approach in assessing, and in more people who pass the trainings and consultations. So during 2018 and 2019, we had very good results, which showed that people gain not only knowledge, but as well skills, and they apply all the materials and instruments we share with them. That's why we ended up with 32 management tools, which are very useful for managing the organization. So those are management tools in the agriculture organizations, cooperatives mainly. And we as well assess which skills they gain after the trainings. As our program was more or less divided by 3 dimensions, we were assessing the cooperative development. Let's say this is the topics for the beginners. We assessed as well the economic block, cooperative economics, and as well the governance, because a lot of new styles of behavior producers have to adopt. They have to be part of the boards, they have to take the decisions, they have to have leadership skills, decision-making skills, and all of those skills and knowledges were not very natural for them. We had the barriers, because it's not the veterinary or agronomy which can be applied by the producers immediately. It's not about milking the cows or feeding the animals or growing the better yields, let's say. It's about organizational development, economics, finances, which are not so easily digested by the producers and not so easily applied. So this was my constraint and challenge. Finally, under the 2 years result of assessment of each training, each participants, we had very good news for ourselves and for all involved into this training approach that our participants have very good skills development. Let's say 30% of the skills which we provided really grew up. We had a big result in the knowledge raise, especially at the first stage when people only started to develop some organizations. And we had as well, for the already existing organizations, very good results in economic and finances block, because we did the strategic planning sessions, financial management skills training. And in this,
yeah, you're reaching the last floor, yeah, of the elevator.
Thank you. Yes.
So just very quickly. So what?
So the trainings are practical. The trainings which we are delivering extension service are not theoretical. They are really practical, and people use and apply the knowledge we deliver. So that's why we need to be very professional as the trainers. We need to be very skilled in the instruments we use, not only delivering in the classroom, but using the study tours, using the cases, using illustrations, going to the field, hands-on trainings, and all of that will give a good skills and appliance of the knowledge we deliver.
Okay, so when you're going to do your case, you're going to give all these tips for the other extension agents, correct?
Yes, the auditory for this case could be cooperatives and producers organization themselves, because they plan their training plans. And one of my tips is to have accompaniment plan of the cooperative inside of the cooperative. I have the illustration for that. Second is extensionists, of course, because they have to be more professional and assess their approaches accordingly. And third group is the donors, because usually donors plan some training activities and they put some outcomes, outputs, and they need a proper approach how to assess the training. Not always it gives economical results immediately, but at least all the trainings activities can be assessed with the proper tools and proper approach. This, I suppose this is missing a lot.
Okay, so we look forward to receiving your case, and thank you for presenting it. We will now go to another case.
May I say something very shortly?
Yes, please.
Just very shortly, because on these two presentations, I think we've had a very good example of the capitalization process, and I like it very much, in which we start with the USP, like Sophia said, there was a problem, there was something that needed to be done. So that's why we emphasize, and that's why you chose this experience. And I think it's very important to start like this. No, you are not choosing this experience because it was okay or just anything. No, it was because you had a problem and you wanted to solve something and you want to find out those lessons. So I think you did it in that sense very nicely. The second is that you mentioned the barriers, the problems that you experience. And I think that's also very important to show, because many times, not many times, always, we try to do something and it doesn't work the way we had planned it. And we have difficulties in the field. So it's very important to show this, because we show, well, we are human. We are experiencing what everybody does. And most of the times the lessons come not from what was planned, but from how we solve those problems which we find on the way. So I think that's also very nice to emphasize it. And the third thing which I liked very much on this one and the previous presentation is that you come with conclusions and recommendations. So those are the lessons, those are the interesting things that people want to read. So you have to give them to them. You have to give those things to the reader, because that's what they want from the beginning. They want, what does Sophia know that I don't know? So I want to learn from her. So if you don't tell me, then, well, yeah, then I'm not so interested in your story. No, so remember that all of you, you are selling, you become some sort of merchants, you're selling your story. So you have to come with this very nice product that you have and that other people want to have. So that's very nice. Good. That has now you have to put it all into writing.
Yes, and it's very nice to have your feedback, Jorge, because it's also very good for people to understand what is important and what is your selling point and how you are conveying your story to others, to make it really interesting. Now, I would like to invite Wengsu, who is going to focus, I think it was on hygiene.
Hello, everybody.
Can you switch the camera on, or your connectivity is too low?
If you want, I can try, but I guess the light is not that good.
You look it looks very nice, so you can go ahead.
Okay. All right. So today I would like to introduce a case I would like to capitalize on about flexible hygiene rules for food produced by smallholders in Hungary that was adopted in 2017. Why I would like to emphasize capitalize this, because now we see that it becomes a trend to promote short food supply chain, while you know that smallholders has been put in a central place in it. However, currently the food hygiene rules are more tailored to industrialized companies, which is not appropriate for small producers and hinders their access to the market. Therefore, it's crucial to develop flexible hygiene rules for small producers. In the case of Hungary, there has been a flexible hygiene rules EU regulation from 2004. However, it wasn't interpreted flexibly in Hungary until 2017. And therefore, it becomes a very valuable experience to learn how they managed to develop such hygiene rules for small producers. I consider my good practices useful for first researchers or NGO workers who are working to promote flexible hygiene rules. So that can be a good information source for them to promote such things in their countries. And second, it will benefit for smallholders to promote their rights, and also for relevant government officials to implement such flexible hygiene rules. And then second, I would like to introduce the exact case of flexible hygiene rules in Hungary. As we know, there were flexible hygiene regulations in EU. However, it wasn't interpreted flexibly. Therefore, there was a need to develop a good hygiene practice guide in Hungary so that government officials know how to regulate and control activities, and also for smallholders, so that they know how to get their activities started. So it was first initiated in 2014 by an NGO with the support of the Ministry of Culture, the Hygiene Working Group, in 2014, and then it was taken up by a small producer association that was in charge of drafting the guide. I didn't mean to run into some details, but it was the guide was mainly based on the interpretation of EU documents and also the relevant hygiene regulation for large producers. And then it was accepted by the Ministry of Agriculture, but also it was followed by a long consultation process, and also some correction of stylistic standard mistakes, and also to adjust with some regulation changes. Finally, it was adopted in 2017. It has a lot of direct impact results for small producers in terms of the premises that they need to be improved. And so after the flexible hygiene rules adopted, it has been much easier for them. It just reduces the operation cost a lot for them. And also regulations on the local markets have helped them to get into the market. And also it helps them to prepare the records needed for the inspections of the government so that their work can be carried out legally. And also for longer term impact, such hygiene rules can facilitate their access to markets, and also for governmental officials to better implement the rules and to manage this food safety. While even longer impact is this can bring additional income for farmers and promote traditional methods and cultural preservation, and also for rural development. However, while reflecting on such good case, such good practice, it was, I think, from my interviewees, it was important to have the first political will to really promote such a short food supply chain and give institutional support. And second, it's important to have such technical expertise to be able to interpret EU regulations and to adopt it locally. And third, it's really important to have a good collaboration from small association and also the government officials. While, however, there was also some obstacles during this process. For example, the long-term process it took to adopt this food hygiene regulation because of the very high communication cost or ineffective communication during the consultation process.
Well, can I ask you 2 questions so that you can continue? My 2 questions are, what are these flexible hygiene rules? What are these? And the second is,
I forgot to introduce.
COVID? What about COVID now? Now with COVID, are the hygiene rules related? Not at all, or is it perfect to have them now in place? So just tell us.
Yes. Well, okay. So the flexible hygiene rule is more about first smallholders. They are not. They don't need to apply to the general hygiene rules by big companies if they have smaller quantities, or they were sold in a smaller geographical area. So it was called small quantity selling and territorial sales limitation. And also for them, they have much lower requirement for premises. So for example, they are not allowed, they do not need to arrange a separate food room for food processing. so they can separate in time. For example, they just focus on food processing at noon, while they can still use their private dwellings for their catering activities at some other time. So this reduces a lot of operational cost for small producers. And also for temperature control, while for producers with animal origin, it's mandatory for them to have a cold chain and also appropriate temperature. However, for smallholders that sells in local market, and the temperature control is much less mandatory, or much less required. Yeah, and also for records, it's much simplified. And for in terms of the COVID, yes, I didn't consider in adding this in the good practice. However, I think it also has much higher requirement in the hygiene, and also some local organizations have adopted some good practices in promoting access to the market by like delivery. How do you say? So they do not need direct contact, but it can be delivered to someone's house. So that's also another way during the COVID time to facilitate the exchange, the trade.
Mm-hmm. That sounds.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, so that's also what I need to add on. Also, maybe the wearing gloves for sellers become kind of mandatory for them. So that can also be added.
Yeah, good. Jorge, do you want to add anything to Wengsu, or asking her a question? Nope.
No, afterwards. I think afterwards, yeah.
It's very interesting, and I've learned a lot of things just listening to you now. So that's great. Excellent. Thank you very much. I think that for all of you who are working on your cases, I think that the COVID-19 crisis is something that we should think about. And, we should also think about how this good practice can be adapted.
Good morning to everybody. I will try to express a real situation in the elevator. The people in the elevator are my colleagues from the other countries. And they ask me, hello, Vitso, what are you doing these days? I am working with my colleague Daniel from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering. I'm working together with him on the OptiMilk. What does mean OptiMilk? OptiMilk is a web-oriented application for the optimization of ration of dairy cows. Sorry, Mr. Vitso, could you say a few words more about your application? What is it? What is the objective of your application? The key objective of our application is to provide the digital way for the wider range of dairy producers to optimizing, which means minimization of costs of ration for dairy cows. What is the product of your project? Our product will be a digital solution not only for big farmers, digital solution with user-friendly for the wide range of small farmers in the Bosnia and Herzegovina. who was initiated, who have initiated your project idea. The project initiated by the Association of Dairy Farmers, and we think it will be we will get success because the initiated idea came from the dairy farmers. What is the problem in your, what do you think, what is the key constraints in your project? It is the interdisciplinary project where the people from IT sector and agricultural sector are involved in the project. I think we have constraints like communication between different sectors. We have maybe we will have a problem how the farmers will accept the digital solution, but we are trying to make as more as possible user-friendly solution for not for big farmers, user-friendly solution to the small farmers or dairy farmers in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is all, I think. What will be outcome of your project? The outcome will be reducing or rationalization feeding costs at numerous dairy farms in Bosnia, with raising milk yield through better balance of nutrition of feeds. And the impact of our project will be to improve economic performance in BH dairy production as one of the key sector within the agriculture in BH Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is a very specific project for us. This is it is first our interdisciplinary project where I work also with colleague Daniel, and I think the experience from this project will help me to the our interdisciplinary activities.
Thank you, Vitso. Thank you very much. I will give now the floor to Petrit, and after that, Jorge will come with some comments. I know that Saudata would like also to intervene, so try to make it very short so that short sometimes give the opportunity to ask for more. So make it short to the point so we can take some more cases. Thank you. So now I'm inviting Petrit.
Okay.
Petrit,
yes,
you're ready. Great. So please, in a few minutes, what is your case?
Okay, I have chosen one of the cases I have recently identified. It's a farmer somewhere in Albania. It's not important where, but he's a farmer who has introduced some ICTs in agricultural by his own. So this make me feel that probably the idea of analyzing such case would be very interesting for this meeting today. This farmer started his business with greenhouses, working mainly in producing seedlings for other farmers. He started in 2002. In 2006, he introduced the first control of the environment in the greenhouse, and later he started exploring more and more about the technologies. He has visited several fairs abroad, Italy, Netherlands, Hungary, and then he decided 4 years ago, 2016, to introduce the last, let's say, equipment that is controlled spray and irrigation. is a remote control is scheduled or not scheduled, and also remotely controlled. And what is special in this case is that all his experience was built on his own. Does mean everything he has done, investment, knowledge, searching for new opportunities, has done by his own. So no support by any project, no support or ideas coming from extension service. And I found this a good chance to promote such experience and to find not only good experiences, but also problems that we may see and correct for other farmers. So we think that it's good to make the experience capitalization for this case in order to show to the others that everybody can copy or can implement in similar situations this technology. Some farmers have started, but what's the problem is that extension service is not doing his work. So extension service doesn't know for this experience until now. So it's good for them to show not only his experience, but also to show how they can support the others, how they can organize events to make known to other farms that some technologies exist and they can be replicated in other places, but also to policymakers that they can support some things, making some good environment for such development. And of course, we need also a strategy on agriculture. We are working on this, and some of our recommendations will be for policymakers. So in this case, for me, it's a little bit tricky if we are doing this experience capitalization for farmers, for extension service, or for policymakers. So it's very difficult to find the language and the way we have to do it, but it's necessary for the three groups I mentioned. So this is more or less the case. I try to explain it as short as possible, so I am open to your question now.
Many thanks, Petrit, and we can reply to these questions just after that. We have two more people. If Jorge agrees, then I would now ask Saudat to make it also very short, and then Prudence. Saudat, you can have the floor.
Hi, everybody. Do you hear me well?
Yes, you can go.
Yeah, just start making a short presentation. I wanted just to ask, because I listened to the previous presenters and they have more concrete, tangible outcomes. I mean, just their experience are mainly grounded on the well, practical things. Mine actually basically, let's say, just anecdotal, based on the anecdotal evidences, observations, and my conversation, informal conversation. So is that also can be considered as experience capitalization too, and taken as that serious as required by the course?
You can do that, of course, and then you see whether these anecdotal experiences could develop in something wider, bigger.
Okay, good. So basically, just I came up also with the title of my case studies, or let's say just the evidences. That's gender mindfulness in extension. So why I'm taking this way, I mean, this informal, let's say, observation on experience, as everybody knows that in the world, majority of the women are engaged in agriculture, but it shows that the women experience time and mobility constraints to actively be engaged in economic life, and also enjoy, equally enjoy, together with men, the financial benefits of the agricultural products. Of course, just there is very good legislation in many countries, including in my country, in Tajikistan, that makes favorable for the gender mainstreaming. However, and the gender, well, basically considerations should not be taken for granted by. So in my case, I would like to describe, I would like to analyze the gender mindfulness of several stakeholders, such as extension service providers, implementing partners, including also just FAO staff, about women empowerment to impact sustainable agricultural product, and eventually the food security. So to me, that would be that case would be very interesting, which is based, as again I'm repeating, on my personal observation and conversations with the stakeholders. My conclusion and my findings are that many stakeholders are not well knowledgeable about the gender issues. So majority of them, they think that the presence of the women is the addressing the gender issues in agriculture, which is not that much true. They also considered the involvement of the women in activities, and let's say just they, by they I mean the stakeholders, also lack of information or reluctant to learn about importance of gender equality and the women empowerment in action. So therefore, I'm thinking that it would be well, the final product would be the case study with findings, with conclusions and suggestions, and my suggestions for the well, stakeholders, mainly the decision takers, implementing partners, to be agile in gender equality achievement in extension. Because many of them, they are taking gender equality as for granted, basically, and pay less attention to that, and reasoning that agriculture is more about technical issue, technology, and stuff like that. And what else? And factors, actually, the factors helped me to achieve these results are the access to the training program of extensions, working closely with the implementing partners, also meeting with the local authorities to know about the gender issues, gender situation in their community, in that locality. Also just well, observations of stakeholders in various situations, starting from the high-level meetings, ending by the fields level, which indicates to different attitude of same stakeholders toward gender issues at different situations. Like, I mean, just at the high-level meetings, they speak, they talk about one thing, and when it comes to the field, actually activities, they would behave themselves differently. And that's also just I can in my case study, I will just show what kind of lessons learned I would have. And if I have one more minute, I can just tell you. And well, and then how sustainable was the experience? So, and what are the conditions put in order? So let me just recap. Well, sum up are my sayings that as a suggestions or recommendations, I would write about the obligatory requirements for gender mainstreaming in all projects and programs. It is true that every project and programs include the gender analyses, gender just action plan followed up strictly or tracked, well, taken seriously, and based on the local context to adjust the strategies and approaches of empowerment of women and improvement of access to resources, and which is very key. But the main problem access of the women to the resources, different types of the resources and knowledge, and upscale the model up to the regional level to replicate practice to different, or let's say neighboring district. So this is shortly what I would like to write about. So if you have any questions or suggestions, I would welcome.
We are going to share some questions and opinions on this particular case and also on the previous ones. But Sophie was suggesting that first let us listen to Prudence, who I understand is ready to share a few minutes. Yes. So Prudence, you go first, and then we share a few ideas on the different cases.
Yeah.
Go.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, George and Sophie and the team for putting this together. My name once again is Prudence Yebare, and I am based in Uganda. I work with Uganda National Farmers Federation, and I'm going to share briefly about an advocacy activity that we have been doing. The title of my experience is The Simple Voice That Matters Most in a Season, and that is the Farmers Manifesto 2021. We have for long been engaged in different advocacy-related activities aiming at transforming and influencing different kinds of policies in the country. And we have always worked together to generate the issues related to extension, to post-harvest handling, to research, market systems. But most of the times, this has been welcomed with less interest, while some of these issues have always fallen on a deaf ear. But of recent, we initiated an idea of the Farmers Manifesto, which the Farmers Manifesto was able to generate evidence and data related to what the farmers want. And this was collected from over 90% of the country side, both up country and in the urban. And when these issues were collected through the processes of data collection, through the processes of partner mobilization, through the processes of farmer engagement, we worked on presenting these farmers' issues to the political parties with the hope that whichever political party buys in to the Farmers Manifesto, then that is the political party that we as the farmers can be able to vote. Meanwhile, the farmers, and especially in Uganda, we are the majority at 75% of the total population. And so we have believed that if these political parties will be able to buy in to handle the farmers' issues at national level, at subnational level, and the local level, then we will be able to get to vote for them. And at this time, different political parties have been buying and listening to us as much as possible. We have engagements, we have been talking in different areas and aspects, and it has been very keen. So that is briefly about my experience. I've not finalized it fully, but that is part of it that I have to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prudence. I think, well, you finished. I think I lost your voice at the very end, but I think you were finishing. We had one more person, but I don't know. Luis, are you connected? Are you going to share a few ideas? You didn't respond on the chat. Otherwise, there's no reply. Otherwise, I wanted to share a few ideas from the different presentations that you've made. It's very difficult. Well, I don't want to repeat myself and say that you've done it all good, but you have all done very good, I think, and you have all come with a few interesting things that I would like to highlight. Perhaps starting from the last one, Prudence, you mentioned who you are. And I think it is very important to emphasize who is writing, who is presenting, so that the reader really starts getting the story, identifying who is presenting it. Who are you? Where are you based? What are you doing? I think that is very important because it sets the context of the whole experience. And then, of course, to remember that what we are presenting is an experience. So you are not presenting theory. You are not presenting something abstract. You are not presenting a case of theory which you have developed or that where has been developed through a lot of years. No, you are talking about a particular experience. One of you, I think it was Petri, who says, I'm talking about one farmer or a group of farmers. I think that is perfect. Something concrete, something small. It doesn't need to be very broad. Remember, we were discussing once that the narrower, the shorter, the smaller, let's say, the experience is, the easier it is to analyze it. So if you're going to be talking about the work that you have been doing with one farmer, with a group of farmers, I think that's very nice. It is a case. I think we have to see this as a sort of case study. No, that it doesn't cover everything which is happening in the world. It doesn't cover the theory. No, but it doesn't need to. It is just the lessons that you come from the work, that you draw from the work that you are doing, and which are applicable to a particular area, to a particular region, and to the work that has happened in a certain place. Of course, we expect that these are going to illustrate and are going to inspire other work, but it doesn't need to be the theory that applies to the whole world, not at all. In that sense, I think it was Saudat who was talking, okay, I'm going to be talking about gender mindfulness. And I think that's a very important point, and I think it is very relevant. But remember that you are not going to be writing about gender mindfulness in general. No, you are going to be writing about what you have done in order to promote it or in order to encourage it, what you have been trying, the steps that you have taken. So you have to remember that we are presenting this as an experience and not as an abstract theory. Yes, and of course that applies for all the cases. Coming back to the initial presentation and linked to what I just said with the last presentation, I think a couple of you, Vitso, especially you mentioned, for whom is this document or who are you writing for? And that is also very important, that from the very beginning, not just for the readers, but also for yourselves, to remember who are we writing for? Who is expected to be benefiting from this document? Especially because, as one of you said, the way we present the document will depend very much. If we're writing for farmers, you present it in a certain way. If we're writing for policymakers, you present it in another way. So that has to be very clear. So And then sometimes you have to make a choice. Petri, you mentioned, yeah, you could write three different cases maybe the best is that you think of 3 different documents, because if you make one document which is good for everybody, then in the end it is good for nobody.
Yes, this is what I would like to complement what you said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one topic can have different audiences. So the information you're going to collect, it's going to be the same. Of course, when you're collecting and gathering all the information, you need to have also the different perspective of the different users and your different audiences. But the work that you do once is the same,
yeah.
whatever the audiences are.
Yeah.
The result of the document will be different. And I just wanted to explain that in the course, we have given an example that we did this in Africa, in Niger. And we have done a document which was for farmers. It was different than for policymakers, because for the farmers, we had the illustration, which were exactly what they needed to see. When it was for policymakers, it was short, to the point, and showing exactly what type of this decision they had to take. So you see, each time you have a specific audience, the content, the language will be maybe a bit different. You make it easier of access, depending of whom, because you are not going to use jargon in ICTs for farmers who don't know much about it, but you're going to make it accessible to them. What is important is that they see what is the benefit of it, and they will certainly see the benefit. So this is really what is important to know. You have different documents, but the work that you do initially is the same. And that's why it's very important to also hear all the different perspectives and the different opinions of people. And very often we have used in the facilitation tools, you have the 6 thinking hats, for example. This is forcing you to actually have the different perspectives and to integrate it in what you're doing when you're doing your analysis of your case. So that this is just what I wanted to add about the different audiences. Back to you, Jorge.
Yeah. Sometimes it may mean, of course, that you have to write 3 different documents, or to present the information in 3 different ways. Maybe you don't have the time to do that, or you don't have to do everything immediately, but then you have to choose one, and then the other, and then the other. And then I think that the exercise is going to be more interesting, because it's going to be sharpened. Another thing that somebody mentioned, I saw that anecdotal evidence. This is linked, of course, to the idea of a case study, and I think I'm very interested always as a reader of anecdotes, of stories which may not reflect the whole world, but one particular person or one particular village. So I think I'm all in favor of that, and I think it is good. But remember, and that's something that, of course, there is no time to do this in these very short presentations. Remember that no matter what the anecdote is, you have to come with arguments that sustain it. You have to come with evidence. You have to demonstrate all the time that what you're saying, it is, of course, true, but it is also relevant, and it is also valid. So even if you are talking about one farmer, and it looks like a very, let's say, a story, a very nice anecdote that you could have invented at the spot, I think you have to remember that you have to make it as convincing as possible. So come with arguments, come with demonstrate that what you're saying, there are numbers, that there are figures that you can represent. You can put quotes, you will put a photograph, you will put the opinion of this person talking, to make it as convincing as possible. Many times you receive a document, and it says, for example, to pick on this word, it says, yeah, gender mindfulness is important. And that's it. why are you going to believe that it is important? Simply because you say it, it is not enough. So you have to come with the arguments, you have to come with the evidence, you have to demonstrate that it is truly important. And that is something that you really have to dedicate. And remember, if we use the same analogy as I was mentioning before, that you are trying to sell your document, then you have to be convincing. Remember how convincing are salesmen, that they really convince you to buy something. If they just say, oh, this is good, you're not going to buy it. Yes?
Jorge, maybe I can also intervene for the gender
sure.
mindfulness.
Sure.
So that in the course on experience capitalization, we have done that exercise, because you see, there are all the people who are skeptical about the value of experience capitalization. And if you remember, in one of the first lesson, I don't remember if it was lesson 1 or lesson 2, you have this slide with people say, oh, we don't have the time. And then when you click on it, you have the answer. But if you don't take the time, then you will not be able to learn from what you're doing to improve. So in the case of the gender mindset, you can look at all what people are doing, and then to show what is the result of that. And so you can use this pro and con. And if you do that exercise, you need, number one, to identify exactly what were the things that you hear all the time, or the stories that you've heard. And then you see, okay, and now if I want a change, what needs to be changed in order for the gender mindset to become something practical and not only what is a lip service. It's about practicing what people are saying. So you can use this. So this is my also a little contribution. Back to you, Jorge.
Yeah. No, I think this is very useful. Linked to this evidence, something that all of you have mentioned is some of the results that you have seen. I think it's very important to show the results, because that's what you demonstrate. I did this and we achieved that. Therefore, what we are doing is good. No, as a sort of demonstration. All of you have been talking about the results and the good things that you found. Some of you added the barriers and the difficulties, which make it even more credible. So that's very good. But I liked, especially, I think it was Wenxiu who mentioned not just the result now, but also the long-term impact. So I think it's also good to try to link what you are doing with a long-term impact. And of course, it is much more difficult to provide evidence that you have achieved long-term impact, especially if your experience has been relatively small or it has just happened. But I think that you can already identify some of these conditions that will lead towards a long-term impact. I think it's very important. Saudat also talked about sustainability of the work. I think it's very important to demonstrate that even if your case is very small, the results, the idea is that the results are going to be felt also in the long term, and that they are going to be expanded, that they are going to be upscaled. That's what we're working for, not to upscale. So you can try to add some indicators that this is effectively taking place. You may not see the impact now, but you may see that some of the conditions are there, that some people are copying, that some politicians are convinced, that more people are happy with the work you're doing. And all of those things lead you to think that, oh yes, there is going to be much, much more impact in the future. So don't be afraid to try to go there, even, of course, if it is a little bit difficult and a little bit, how do you say, sometimes we don't know what the impact, we don't know if things are going to be the way we want them in the future. So it is a little bit guesswork, but we can have some indicators. Two more very short comments. What you mentioned, Sophie, about COVID, I think it is important because everybody's talking about COVID at the moment. It doesn't mean that all of you have to talk about COVID, no. But I think it goes back to this idea of the USP that we were mentioning at the beginning, and relevance. If everybody's talking about COVID and you are going to say something, I think it is welcome because everybody's thinking about it, everybody's interested. So yes, it makes your case more relevant. But remember, don't repeat what everybody else is saying, because then your document becomes less interesting if it is just, oh yeah, this is what everybody says, so I don't want to read this. Now, so think of the relevance, think of how useful, think of what new ideas you are bringing. If you are not going to say anything new about COVID, better don't say it, because otherwise people will just say, well, this has nothing to do with anything. Yes? And then my last comment, and I think that that also came up with the different presentations, is remember your conclusions. Remember the key lessons. This is the most important thing you have to, and that will be probably the first thing that the reader is going to read. You don't go and you read a whole story. Most of the times you just go and you immediately go and search for the conclusions. If you like the conclusions and the lessons, then you go and you read the rest. Even if we don't put this at the beginning, of course. But remember, we are doing all this exercise to share lessons, to share what we have learned. So that has to be in your document. That is the most crucial thing. And think, one of the tricks for doing this is think what you have learned yourself. What didn't you know before, which you know now? You have learned it, so you can put it on your document. And if you have learned it and it is something new, it is probably also new for your colleagues. So probably also new for the people that you are targeting. So make sure that you express it, make sure that you put it there, and that is going to make your document more interesting, and therefore more and more people very eager, are going to be very eager to read what you are presenting. Yes, this is of course a very short exercise. As Sophie has already mentioned, we don't even have time for anything, but I think it was very good. Now what you need to do is to give all the details, to expand these ideas which you have been sharing. And of course, don't forget well, let's say the additionals, to put photographs, to put quotes, to put figures. If you're talking about a village in the middle of Bosnia, I don't know, to put a map so that we can find it, and all these little details which make it more attractive also for the reader. And then I think you have all the elements for a very successful case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Jorge. I would also add that you know, when people don't have time, they don't only go to the conclusions, but they look at the very beginning. They look at the intro. What is this going to be useful for me? Should I continue reading or not? So please try to work really well on your intro, what it is about, why people would be interested in reading it or listening to it or watching it, and what are, and then work on your conclusions. This is really crucial because people will stop immediately, even a video or an audio. If you don't tell, you know, this is very interesting because you're going to learn that, then the hook is there and they might listen to the end. If you don't have the hook, you have lost your audience. So this is very important. You have to hook your audience and you have to have a good conclusions. And this is why we, what we are trying to do with experience capitalization, it's to help you to articulate what you are presenting. And this is why it is important not to say the what, but to say the how and the why. And you're able to do that if you're doing your analysis. And if you're going through all the process. Another tip I'd like to share with you, I very often say to people, try to present your case to your grandmother, because she is another generation, it's all new to her. You don't speak to the other specialists. So try to present this case to your grandmother and try to see whether your grandmother would understand what you're talking about. So this is also a good way to think about, okay, I have to forget about my jargon, my abbreviations, and my peers. I'm talking to someone who does not know anything about it. And this is the attitude that you should have, is that you should not assume that everybody knows what you know, because it is never the case. People know different things, or they have different interpretation. That's why you please try to do this with, okay, they don't know anything about it, and I have to be clear so that they get my point. And what Jorge said about importance of having quotes, we like to finish these good practice, for example, cases with the testimony, someone who benefited from it, and what this person will tell you. How this has been changing. So these are really the way you can make it more attractive and interesting. So these are the conclusions of this meeting. We have done all this series of mentoring webinars for you to really understand how you can make an impact, how you can be more successful in sharing your experience, your good practice, your innovations. And if, of course, we would like to document them. So we would like you to continue working on this practice. Of course, we can exchange via email. We can exchange also in the forum. And remember, the 7th of September is the deadline that we gave for people to send their case. And we would be really pleased to receive your case. And as we mentioned, we are ready to work with you in individual session, in mentoring session with you to help you going through the whole documentation and the writing process. And if you want to have them for different audiences, we can go through these different audiences with you. What is important, because it's also very nice to show one example for 3 different audiences and to show how different it can be. So I really welcome you to continue working on your cases so that we can also show this. We have publication on extension with GFRAS. We will have publication on digital agriculture, e-agriculture with FAO. So please, continue the good work. The way we have been working today is looking very promising, because there were really stories, interesting stories to be told. So continue, let's continue being either on the platform or via email, and we are ready to continue doing these mentoring even after the 7th of September. We gave this deadline of 7th of September, as the first week of October is the GFRAS annual meeting, and during that week we will have a session on experience capitalization and what we have learned from the process that we started in February. And we would like to also showcase some of your work during that session during the GFRAS. So this is one of the next milestone that we have, is this first week of October GFRAS meeting, special session on experience capitalization, and having the possibility to show some of the result of what we have been able to do together. So we are looking forward to hearing from you. We have another week to go, and we would be pleased to continue the session face-to-face with those who want to continue. We are also thinking of having a professional editor who can help us, so we can have things in English, but also in Russian, and we will try to have them also translated in the 2 languages. So this is all for today. I really thank you all for being with us today. I'm thankful because many of you have been present since the beginning, and I'm also very satisfied by the people who have done the whole course and who have got their super badge. For those who have joined a bit later, it's never too late. You still have time. So I would be pleased to continue also supporting you in this learning process. So thank you very much to all of you, and thank you for Daria and Valentin who are behind the screens and helping us. And Daria is also supporting for the Russian, so we can count on her. She's also cleaning everything on the Moodle platform, which by the end of the year will become a MOOC. So we are also looking forward to receiving your feedback, because what we want to do is also to improve this platform so that it can become a MOOC and a standalone platform for online learning. So thank you very much. And again, hope to see you or reading you very soon. Thank you.